Welcome to Connecticut Newsmakers with Tom Monahan, your weekly look at the people, issues, and events shaping our state. Connecticut Newsmakers starts now on NBC Connecticut HD, Connecticut's news leader.
Welcome back, everybody, to part 3 of Connecticut Newsmakers. I want to talk a little bit about solar energy and solar energy systems in this segment of the program, and our guest on this segment is Carolyn Humphreys. She is with the Outreach Director, Community Outreach Director for Sunlight Solar Energy, based here in the state. Carolyn, thanks a lot for coming in and joining us, being with us on our program.
Thank you so much for having me, Tom.
Nice to have you here. Tell us a little something about the Sunlight Solar Energy business and particularly your company.
Well, you know, what's great about being in the solar industry is it's a big topic right now, and everybody's so excited about solar energy. So our company has probably put up nearly half of all of the solar electric systems in Connecticut. So we started out very small a few years ago. I wouldn't have imagined this kind of growth. I wouldn't have imagined this kind of support, really. Connecticut is an extremely solar-friendly state. This is a very state-specific enterprise. So to be in a state that we've gotten tremendous support from our legislature, annual net metering was necessary for solar to really take off, and we didn't get a lot of love from Jody Rell. Our energy bill was vetoed, but you know, we have a new opportunity to rectify that. The Senate and the House passed it, so we know we have the support we need once we have a governor who we thought she'd be more supportive. I mean, it was a big bill.
Why'd she do that? Was it dollar, you know, was it an economic kind of matter? Apparently
she was getting advice from people who felt that this was going to be, you know, an expense that, and that made her very uncomfortable. Unfortunately, I don't really think the information was as accurate as some of us would hope. I can't speak to the entire bill. There was quite a bit in it. I think it was better than nothing, is sometimes the best thing one can say about something, but everybody kind of said, well, not everybody, many people said, you know, gee, I loved the solar provisions. Right. You know, we had a solar bill that passed the House and went to the Senate, but Senator from Farr really wanted an energy bill, so that was why that kind of unfolded in the way it did. But I think what was interesting is it created a dialogue, and now people are much more interested in solar and energy. I mean, this is a really important issue, and it certainly put it out, you know, front and center, and I think it was an important step. I think we're optimistic.
How did you wind up with the company?
Honestly, I purchased a solar system, and I never thought, I designed a passive solar house, very energy efficient. I was a sustainable building fan. I'm utterly committed to the fact that if we build in a sustainable fashion, if we, you know, the money best saved is the money not spent. I mean, you know, if you have a house that functions in a way, you know, from the beginning that uses very little energy, all the better. I never imagined I could afford, honestly, a photovoltaic array. You know, my husband said to me, there's these incentives, we really should look into it. I, like so many people I talk to all the time, said, we can't afford it. And he said, you know, Carolyn, just why don't you get the numbers? You know, before you assume you can't afford it, you know, that you may not know what you think you know. And I didn't. And I looked into it, and I got tremendous. Actually, our company's mission statement is to educate people, and they really mean it. I mean, the owner talked to me for maybe 2 hours on the phone, explained everything I could ever want to know, which was really great because I didn't really have the time to research this. You can do that now, but the nice part is there are folks who will really kindly share what they know. And Connecticut is a terrific state for solar energy because we're the highest ratepayers in the continental United States. And I think that's a point a lot of people miss. When I looked at my alternative of continuing to pay whatever utility company asked me for indefinitely, right? This wasn't going to stop. They weren't going to call me one day and say, you've been paying a long time. I'm going to give you some free energy for 10 years. Yeah. And that's really why solar is such a preferable, it is an alternative a lot of people aren't aware of. But a lot of people are aware. They go, wow, I have an alternative to that. And that's empowering. And if it's an alternative that also people feel good about, you know, it's a low-risk, high rate of return investment. There are very few of those around right now. It adds value to your home, does not increase your property tax. When I saw all of this, I thought, this is extraordinary. And I wanted to be a part of it because I was looking for a job.
And you found one.
I found it.
You know, a lot of people don't think of Connecticut as being the kind of a state where solar energy would really work. I mean, we think of it in terms of other states, maybe, you know, out west or down south. But apparently, obviously, you feel it can work here in the south. How would it work?
Well, the good thing is I've had a system on my house for 3 years. And I get a $16 customer service fee every month. That's it. And so I know it works. It supplies 100% of the energy for my family of 4. Plus, my husband runs a cabinet shop. And I didn't even fill my roof because, as I mentioned, our home was already quite quite energy efficient, to begin with. So that helped a lot. But in terms of it being, more appropriate in one state versus in another, unfortunately, that's a little more complicated than people realize. I mean, for instance, heat is a degrader of electricity, meaning that the hotter it is, the more it affects your output. So photovoltaic equipment loves a cold climate, which actually makes Connecticut much more appealing than people might realize, is that we have this moderate climate, not the excessive heating, cooling cycles of a desert, which makes equipment last a shorter period of time. So if our equipment lasts a long time, and we're the highest rate payers in the nation, right, this combination, and we have excellent incentives. Actually, early adapters are the most highly incentivized. So a lot of people are waiting for this to become less expensive. The equipment prices come down, but so do the incentives. So the end cost to the consumer has really remained quite constant. And actually, early adapters, as I mentioned, are more highly incentivized. So the earlier people got in on this, they realized the better the investment, because they're being helped even more. The incentives are coming down, and that's the good news too. We don't want to be subsidized. No industry, in their right mind would want to be subsidized. You're at the whim of politicians. So our equipment costs are coming down, our subsidies are coming down, and we're highly competitive. I mean, whatever your payback period is, after that, as long as that equipment lasts, that's the free period. Right, so if my payback is mine's 10 years, but because I have a very good solar site, it's a passive solar house. But say your payback is 10 to 15, and that's only figuring a 5% annual rate increase, which we know has been a lot high. It's been 7.5% for the last 10 years. So, but with these very, very conservative estimates, at the end of that time, I stop paying, which if I didn't do it, I wouldn't. There's no way to stop paying your electric bill without your lights going out, right? But I will stop paying, and my energy will be free for the longevity of that system. The system's design life is 40 to 50 years. So if my payback's at year 10 and my system lasts 40 to 50 years, I have 30 years of free, clean energy. How does that not make financial sense? When it doesn't, I'll stop doing this.
Well, and so obviously you're convinced. But would people need, we only have a couple minutes left, would people need a good solar site in order to pull it off?
You need a solar site. If I look at a satellite picture and all I see is trees, I have to break the bad news that you don't have a solar site. Right. The sun does need to hit these panels. Now, I've been talking about electricity, but there's solar hot water, which is less site dependent and much more straightforward technology, much less expensive technology, and we now have an incentive in Connecticut for it, which is outstanding. We've been waiting for this. Right. So, yes, you do need a solar site. We need a roof. We're hoping for a roof because the structure's already there, and we're hoping it gets enough light. So south, east, west, they all work. And the less shade you get, the better.
How about this? People may say, well, maybe I'll wait a little bit. And if I wait, maybe I'll get a better deal, prices go down. Does it work that way?
Well, that's really what I was driving at when I talked about early adapters being more highly incentivized. It does work that way. The equipment itself is definitely becoming less expensive, but the incentives are also coming down every time equipment costs come down. So with that being the case, the end price to the consumer, I think, will remain somewhat constant because we're reaching cost parity, and once we do, it won't be less expensive. Very few people are going to sell you something for less than what they can get for it if it's already an outstanding financial decision for you.
So you got a little work to do politically.
A little bit, but not as much as one might imagine. We really have a tremendous amount of support in Connecticut. People love solar energy, and that makes my job a joy.
Carolyn, thanks so much. Appreciate your time. All the best to you. That's it, folks. I'm Tom Monahan. Thanks for joining us. See you next week on Connecticut Newsmakers.